This computer. All right. So we're going to start getting into AutoCAD here. So on your home screen, you're going to want to look for this icon right here. It's this red capital A, and then it has CAD underneath. So that's the AutoCAD icon. Now the AutoCAD that we're running, if we double click on that, it's gonna start generating in the background here. You'll notice that it says AutoCAD 2024. Okay, and our book, I'm just going to X out of mine. Yours isn't going to say this, but it'll look like this when you get in. Our book is 2023, right? So you might be like, wait a second, is that going to work? It's totally going to work. All right. AutoCAD puts a new revision out every single year and does like tiny little tweaks to it. If you had the 2022 version of this book, the 2021 version of this book, you'd be good. Okay. So, so I think what basically happened in ordering books, sometimes those dates don't correspond with when the book editor has this version available. So for instance, this version available maybe became, like active in June, and we were ordering our books in March or April. Okay. So it didn't have the very most current version. So don't worry. We're going to work with this version. And if you end up, finding a less expensive version that is a little bit older within a couple of years, that'll be fine too. Okay. But don't fret about the 2024, 2023. We'll be good. We'll be good. And if we come upon a little issue, then we'll resolve it as it comes up. So right now you should see this like home screen as we come in on AutoCAD. And all we want to do is up at the top here, upper left-hand corner, kind of typical to a lot of programs. That's where we do kind of our file management, start things. So we're going to hit that down arrow next to the A. And you'll notice that the very top icon here is new. Okay, so we just want to click on new. And what's going to happen, this dialog box with a list of templates is going to come up. And these templates, you'll notice that the default is this ACAD template. We're just going to go with that. All right. We're not going to worry too much about the templates. There's a number of different ones here, but we're just going to go with this ACAD one. And we're just going to say open. Now, we will be creating templates in a couple meetings. Okay. And all a template does is it sets the environment to be how you want it to be when you come in. Otherwise, you have to like change settings and layers and colors each and every time you come in. So it's a way to save those. We're not there yet. So we're just going to use a generic one that they have. Okay, so ACAD is good to go. So now this is our environment when we are in AutoCAD. All right. Now, before we really kind of jump back into here, because this is our main focus, I want to talk a little bit what's in the book in our introductory section. And it's a little bit of history kind of getting up to there. Before I go into our book, is everybody where I'm at right now? Okay. Now, when we are doing our lesson here and I'm doing my demo, as I had mentioned before, when I'm recording, I will answer any and all questions except if you say to me, I don't have that, I'm 3 steps back and you got it, and I'm not caught up. I don't stop my lecture for that. All right. And that's okay. My expectation is not that you are following along and doing this click by click by click by click. I'm doing a demonstration to show you how to do it. And really the learning comes in when you start playing with it yourself. So the lecture and the demo here is for you to kind of follow along, see what's going on, kind of correlate what's happening. If you want to try to keep up with me, that's fine, but that is not the expectation of this at all. Okay. We will have independent work time after my lecture / demo for you to then take the time that you need to kind of practice this stuff. Okay. So do not ever think, oh my gosh, that went so fast. I can't imagine the intent here is not to teach you AutoCAD as I'm doing it. It's going to take practice and it's going to take time and you're going to have to back up and do things. Oh, and that's what the assignments are for. That's what the tutorials are for. That's what our practice time is for. And then I'll be available to answer questions. Okay. So again, ask any question that you want, except if you say, I'm not where you're at, or I didn't follow along. I'm not, because I've got 20 people here. If we would try to do that for everybody as they hit little roadblocks, I'd never get through our lecture. Okay. And I'm recording it. So the nice thing about that as well is that you can always go back and review it if you do have any questions. And then after, when we have independent work time, that's when you're going to have, you're going to be able to kind of peck around and investigate on your own. So, and you'll learn a lot through that process, a lot. Okay, so I just like to kind of set the groundwork. Now I'm going to be moving this little Zoom thing around so so that we can see different things. Oh, it looks like Christian. I need to admit you're in now. Okay. All right. So so as we can see here in this environment, we've kind of got that main setup. So let's go into our book. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go into the intro section, which is the very first. It's really not considered an official chapter, but it's before chapter 1. So I am going to minimize this. There's my camera. So you should see something that looks like this in that intro chapter. It's the chapter before chapter 1, if you would. Okay, so getting started. So this chapter is really all about acquainting us with CAD in general, what it's used for, and then also kind of, identifying the main parts of the screen. So it's kind of a short, truly introduction chapter. All right. So at the beginning here, intro to page 2, as you turn the page, it talks about, and it shows us a little chart here where it shows us where computer-aided design or CAD is in perspective to other technologies that are used out in the manufacturing world. So when we look at computer-aided engineering, okay, it's kind of an overarching umbrella for computer-aided design, as you see on the left-hand side here, computer-aided manufacturing, okay, computer geometric modeling, finite element analysis, and then also computer-aided drafting. Those are all little subsections within. Now, we use the acronym computer-aided design because AutoCAD is a tool that we're going to be creating geometry. So that's this one right here. And we're also going to be creating drawings, which is considered what we call the drafting part of things. Now, in AutoCAD, in 2D form, we don't do finite element analysis. Instead, we will do that in our Creo classes when we do some modeling and creating the actual solid models as opposed to just the flat 2D layouts. And we'll talk about those differences. But that's really where CAD is. And CAD, in terms of AutoCAD, as I had stated the last time we were together, it came in and it creates the 2D version of what would have been a paper drawing. And it becomes now a digital copy that we can store on, a server. And it's more accurate. We can get things to 15 decimal places. We can get points that are together. We can create really good geometry. And then the power is going to be in when we're able to kind of copy and make new parts based on older ones and maybe revise one feature. And now we've got a new part rather than redrawing the whole thing. So it becomes a real time saver and very efficient and accurate. And that's the reason that we use CAD. Now, it says here the development of computer geometric modeling. So first and foremost, when we came in the early 80s, CAD kind of came onto the scene, and it started out as truly taking like a piece of paper and putting that picture on a computer. That was it. Okay. There was no depth, meaning it was all 2D. It was all in the XY form. It was taking that piece of paper literally and putting it on a computer. And now we just didn't have to store those pieces of paper. And now we could also efficiently make copies of it to make new part numbers or change, things about it. But that was the big advantage. Everything was 2D when CAD first started. AutoCAD was one of those very first companies. Now, AutoCAD has been one that stuck in there. There was actually a lot of companies that did 2D AutoCAD. Okay, there was Simlink, there was CADKey. Those have now gone by the wayside. All right, AutoCAD stuck around because when CAD started first in the 1980s, we didn't have PCs that were cheap that you could get for a couple $1,000. Okay, those didn't come really until the late 80s, early 90s. AutoCAD was the first CAD software that wrote their software to be on a PC rather than on a workstation or a mainframe computer. Okay, that was huge. They were the first ones to do that. And when they did that, now all of a sudden, the cost of the software came down. It was only, well, it's $4,000 doesn't sound like, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not that much considering what it, back when it was a lot more. And then also you could get a computer now that was going to sit on your desk. It was a desktop computer that was literally, $3,000-$4,000, very different than a mainframe workstation type of an atmosphere. Okay. So all of a sudden, smaller companies were able to afford this, and they were able to now start capturing. AutoCAD was like the CAD software. So what ended up happening in the 80s, early 90s, AutoCAD was everywhere. Okay. And there was some other ones that tried to keep up, but it was either too late or their product just wasn't as good, and AutoCAD had kind of captured things. So AutoCAD, even though it's a 2D software and you're going to be learning Creo, it's going to be parametric solid modeling, and that's really where the industry is now. AutoCAD is still around. AutoCAD still has a lot of great applications. One of the things that we needed is for that history, because of those drawings that were all created at that time. It doesn't mean that they were necessarily all redrawn in model form. Okay. A lot of times it's like, well, we still have that in AutoCAD. So a company will have an AutoCAD license, if you would, laying around, and you'll be interacting with it. There's also a lot of machine tools like laser cutters that need a path to follow. You can generate that in AutoCAD, send a DXF file, and a lot of machine tools will read that DXF path that's created in AutoCAD. So that's another application where it's still very viable. So AutoCAD hasn't gone by the wayside. It just isn't necessarily the answer to everything, and neither is parametric modeling, and that's why AutoCAD is still around. So we start you here with the 2D AutoCAD because it's the foundation. Okay. And you also are going to see it out in industry. It's not going away anytime soon. Okay. So computer aided drafting, I'm just kind of going along here. I didn't create a PowerPoint because it's really just a couple pages here. So why do we want to use AutoCAD? Again, I kind of said it's that foundation, it's that basis, but also CAD in general. Those reasons still are, it's nice and accurate, it's a digital copy, and it's very efficient and fast in creating multiples of the same design. Okay, so on page intro-7 is where we're going to get started in AutoCAD. I guess before we get back into the AutoCAD software, are there any questions that you have, kind of in regard to that? All right. It might sound a little bit like, why are we learning this? It seems like it's old. It's not old. It's relevant, it's current, but it's not necessarily design-wise going to be your powerhouse designing new stuff. This is going to be for, like I said, interacting with manufacturing processes that need a DXF file, which is only generated out of AutoCAD. And it's all, and there's a lot of them out there. Like I said, laser cutters and such are going to be DXF driven. And then the other reason is for that history and that archival, type of thing. It's around. It's going to be something you're going to interact with. Okay, so getting back into AutoCAD here. So I'm actually going to move this down. I'm going to minimize this, pull my AutoCAD back up, and kind of get back to our environment. So now that we are in AutoCAD, and hopefully everybody is here, just want to kind of identify some of the parts of the screen and the environment that we're going to be working in. So first and foremost, you're going to notice that there is a ribbon across the top. Okay, that ribbon is populated with a number of different icons, and those icons, picture-wise, you're going to start to kind of get used to what they all mean. Now, you may not look at something, and some of them have, you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner there, right below home on the home tab here, we see line. Now, if you're ever unsure what an icon is, or even if it has the name next to it, if you want to know more about it, you just hover over the top of it. You kind of saw that transition. First, when I hover over first, it's going to give me a short description. And then second, if I keep it there, it's going to kind of give me a longer version and actually how to use it. Okay. And that'll be true for all of the icons. These are called tooltips. Okay. And I like those active. I like those active because especially when you're learning, it is a nice little aid when you're trying to figure out what the little icons mean. Okay. Now, additionally, you're going to notice that there are these tabs up on top. These are called ribbon tabs. Okay. there's another layer that we want to add, and we're going to do that together right now. Once we do this, for instance, on the computers here, the next time you log in, this will all be reset up for you again, okay? But if you go home, for instance, and you do it and you start working on your PC, you're going to have to set this up once. And then when you log out and log back in, it'll remember it, okay? These are like system settings for AutoCAD. So what we're going to do is, at the very top, this is called a quick access menu. I'm going to go all the way over, and you see right before share, there's this down arrow. We're going to click that down arrow, and we're going to go down to the very second one from the bottom, and we're going to click on show menu bar. Okay, show menu bar. So I'm going to click on that, and now you see how an extra layer kind of came in, and some of them are similar to what's down below, but some of them are different. Okay. And we'll talk about that. Now, this menu bar right here, AutoCAD has gone through a number of different revisions over the years. So like I said, it started back in the 80s. It was very menu driven at that time. It was DOS based. There wasn't Windows. Okay. So we didn't have nice, cool icons and ribbons the way it's set up now. And this kind of looks like other applications like Microsoft that we interact with. So at that time, you had to go into, for instance, if I wanted to draw a line, I had to go into this menu and kind of, go get at it that way. Now, what's nice about the menu, even though we're not going to be using it a lot, some of these items are not readily available on the ribbon. Okay. They put the most popular on the ribbon. So if I want to go in and I want to do, I don't know, I'm just going to say ellipse. I know ellipse is there, but if I want to do something that isn't necessarily a popular one that's on the ribbon, I'll find it on my menu instead, and I can go at it that way. Okay. Additionally, it's here for us old timers who that was the way we had to do it. We're used to doing it that way, and people kind of gravitate to how they learned. Okay. So those are there. So at times we're going to have to navigate and find those. So I'd like to have those there for use, and we set that up right away. Additionally, as we go around here, you're going to notice that you have this ribbon, and it's associated with the tab. So if I go over and I click on insert, and when I say click, that's a left click. Okay, it's a left click all the time. We will get to know what other buttons are on our mouse, but left click is like anything else in other applications we're selecting. So when I say click, it's a left click. Notice that the ribbon changes every time that I change my tab. Okay, so based on the category here, view, insert, what else? Express tools. These are all going to be associated with, things that are in that category. The place that we're going to be most often is going to be home, and AutoCAD is strategically placed like the draw commands there because AutoCAD is used to draw. You'll also see modify underneath here. So this is going to be our copying, pasting, our moving, all sorts of things, mirroring. Then you're going to notice, I'm going to move this down. We have layers, we have dimensioning or annotation. So we're going to be on the home menu a lot. Okay. All right. Let's go up at the quick access. So you'll notice that the AutoCAD, that A there, that's kind of like, like any other application. When we click on that, the down arrow there, we're going to have available to us kind of those standard file management types of things. So we've got new, open, save as, Okay. So we'll be hitting those along the way. I'm gonna make those small again, but you'll also notice that there's icons to the right here. So instead of having to go into that application menu, instead, these quick access icons are some of those same things. So the very first one here is new. So instead of having to go in and click a couple times, now I can just click it right there and the new button comes up. Same thing with open. If I know I want to grab at a file, here's that open file. And again, these are familiar, icons to us. Okay. We can also add to this if we want to. If we arrow down again, like we did before, we can actually go to more commands. And when we go to more commands, we can add some there as well. So this is one of the ways that you can customize. So if you find yourself doing something on a regular basis, you're like, I'm really kind of sick of doing that all the time. you can add a command to that quick access. I'm not going to do that right now. We don't know what we want to add just yet. So I'm just going to X out of there, but know that a lot of the things and how it's set up is customizable. And that's going to be at times personal preference. Additionally, you're going to notice that there's this arrow that is pointing and kind of curving over to the left. That's the undo arrow. That will be your friend. Okay. And if you do something and you're like, ooh, shoots, I didn't want to do it like that. You can simply do the undo command, click it, and it undoes that last thing that you just did. And then once you start getting commands in there, you'll notice it's grayed out right now, but there is a redo command. Okay, we haven't done any commands yet, so we don't have anything to redo yet. So that's going to be up there as well. So again, kind of familiar to other places, you know, in kind of that Windows environment. Okay. Now I'm gonna X out of there. Now, as we're in the middle here, this is called kind of that workspace. Okay. This is where we're going to be doing our drawing. Now, the easiest way to draw is just to start clicking around. Okay. But AutoCAD wants to know, what do you want to do first? So the order of how we have to enter commands isn't just start clicking on the screen, because it doesn't know what you're trying to do. You have to tell it what shape or feature you want to create. So let's just start with the line command. In this first lesson, we're going to be doing a lot of lines and circles, and that's a great place to start. We can get a long way with lines and circles. Okay. So I am going to left click on the line command just by clicking it. And now when I move down, not clicking anything yet, when I move down, you'll notice that my cursor, which is this crosshairs, next to it, it says specify your first point. This is like a dynamic input, we call it. Now, there are two places that we can input. We can input, there's the command line down here. You see this white at the bottom of the screen? The white at the bottom of the screen, that's the command line. And we also see it up by my cursor. Okay, this is a newer feature within the last 5 years that AutoCAD has created. And what's nice about it is it keeps your eyes on the screen and makes you more efficient rather than going up and down, up and down. Okay, so it's going to be the same information in both places. All right, so now you'll notice that there's a text editor box and you can specify a point. Now, what it's looking for here is we want to input where we want our point to be. Now, we can simply left click and we're putting it right there. Okay, or you can be more accurate, and we're going to be looking at this in our first like official chapter, like how we can actually specify an XY distance from the 0, 0 for where it's going to be at. But for right now, we're just going to do a click. Okay, so I'm going to go somewhere in the middle of my screen here. I'm going to click, and now I start my line command. Okay. Now, the next thing is that we have a dynamic input. Do you guys have this like length along there? That I like mine, I just have it. Do you have this little dimension here? Yeah, that's called a dynamic input. So if I knew how long I wanted this line to be right now, I could literally just input the number. Okay, or I can left click again and just make it a random length. That's what we're going to do. So we can continue to left click. Okay, left click, and you can just kind of make a, you know, cool design. All right, now this isn't very accurate, as you can imagine, but just kind of gets us laying down the points. Now, if I want to end this command, I have one of two things that I can do. I can hit the escape key, or I can hit enter. Okay, enter like confirms like I'm done, or the escape key says I'm done. Okay, if you're ever in trouble, escape key. All right, now I'm going to hit my escape key. That's what I tend to do. And now you'll notice that my line is there and all those like inputs and things are gone. Okay. Now let's say I look at that. I'm like, yeah, I don't really like it. I want to get rid of it. I can go up to the top here and I can say undo. Okay. And now it's gone. Now, why did it get rid of all of it rather than just the last segment? Because it was one line command that I enacted. Okay. Now notice that I undid that. Over to the right now I have something to redo. Do you see? So if I do the redo and I click on that arrow, it's back. Okay, it's back. So that's kind of like, just so you know, if you ever get in trouble or you're like, oop, I did something I didn't want to, you always have that undo and or the redo. right? Okay, all right. Let me see here. Just want to make sure that I'm kind of covering things. All right, the next thing we want to do is whenever we are in our screen here, we are in relationship to what we call the 0, 0, or we call world coordinates. How many of you how many of you know about Cartesian coordinates, and that the intersection of your X and Y is your 0, 0. And then you have X and Y coordinates left, or I should say horizontal, vertical coordinates in relationship to the 0, 0, okay? When we're in manufacturing, starting here in CAD design, that is how like our world works, okay? It's always in relationship to a 0, 0, like where am I at? Where are my coordinates? And so for instance, when I send a DXF file to a laser cutter in manufacturing, it too it's going to match up those XY coordinates to its 0, 0, and then that's how it knows where it's going to go. Okay, it has that relationship. So this is all set up in that Cartesian coordinate system. Now, as I move around here, I have coordinates that are going on in the background, but I'm not seeing them. And what I want to do is we want to actually put those in place and have them as something that we can read. So you're going to notice down in the lower, very right-hand corner, there's these 3 horizontal lines. I think they call it like a hamburger, don't they? Is that like the official name of it if you're in like computer stuff? All right, we're going to the hamburger. I think that's funny. And that's customized, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to look for coordinates. It's actually the very top one, okay? Coordinates. We just want to X on that, or we want to just click it to activate it. And now you're going to notice, okay, and you can click anywhere in the area here. You're going to notice now that you have coordinates down here. They're X, Y, and Z in relationship to our 0, 0. Okay, so as we move around, notice that those move with you. Okay, do you guys see that? Okay, now they're not necessarily terribly important, but they give us perspective. So we are going to be kind of looking at those here and there. But what I want you to do is I want you to go down, down, down to where that X, Y is. Okay. That's where, if you would, that's like our home position. That's our 0, 0. So if I would get like perfectly on the intersection of that X and Y, that's where my 0, 0 is of the screen. Okay. And down here, I'm not exactly 0, 0, but look at how close I am to 0, 0. Do you see that? If I go further away, my numbers are going to grow. Okay. If I get closer to it, I'm just going to approach, 0, 0. Okay. So whenever we're putting in coordinates, or whenever you see, for instance, when I had this line active, okay, those points that I'm laying down have an XY coordinate to the 0, 0, right? Okay, just to kind of give perspective again, give perspective. At times, we're going to actually use that 0, 0 on our drawings when we're setting them up, because again, it gives us a place to start. Okay, so we have our drawing coordinates in. All right, down here on the bottom, this is another quick access menu. Okay, quick access menu. You're going to notice that some of these are that bluish gray. That means that they're active and they're on. Some of them are black. That means that they're not. And to turn them on and off, you simply toggle on and off, on and off. Now, this may not be evident on my screen here, but if you look at your AutoCAD screen, when you have this first one, it's called grid. When you have it in that bluish gray mode, you're going to see grids in the background here. Do you see that? Like they're very faint, like on your screen. That's like drawing on paper, grid paper. That's all. Okay. So again, it just gives you a little bit of perspective. They're a drawing aid when you're starting out. It's a good thing to have. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do this, but it's going to be a personal preference. It's not going to make or break your geometry, make or break your drawing if you have the grid on or not. It's going to be, I like it there. I like it there. Or I don't really need it. So that's going to be a toggle on and off. Okay. But in our tutorial, you're going to notice that they have you use these at first because they are nice, especially in the beginning. Now, right next to it, we have snap. Okay. Snap, it's unclicked right now. If I click it and I go back up into my my drawing area and I click on line, for instance, when I move around, when the command is activated, notice that it jumps from grid mark to grid mark. Do you notice that? It's not like a smooth anymore because now it snaps to those grid marks and I can only draw there. Now that's not bad, again, when you're starting out, because if I lay down a line and I do a point, it's going to be nice and straight, right? It's not going to be at an angle and it's going to follow those grid points. But the problem is that I hope all your dimensions are to whatever that grid spacing are. And that doesn't happen very often, especially as we get into more complex drawings. Okay. So again, snap and grid are there for drawing aids when you're starting out. Okay. So we'll be kind of playing with them a little bit, but they're probably something that's going to go to the wayside. So I'm going to unclick it. Again, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's going to be something that you're not going to necessarily rely on after a while. The next one over to the right here, it's off right now. It's called ortho mode. If you click on it, ortho mode is very handy because we draw a lot of horizontal and vertical lines. Okay. When ortho mode is on and I put the line command on, it's only going to draw horizontal, no matter where I'm at, horizontal or vertical lines. That's it. Only horizontal or vertical lines. And again, that comes in handy because if I don't have ortho on and I try to draw a line, I can go like this and I can try to, go straight, but it may or may not do it. Okay. It may or may not do it. So ortho mode ensures that you're horizontal and vertical. Oh, it's my next one here. Isometric drawing. We're not going to worry about that one. The next one is going to be show snapping reference lines. Okay. So this one, remembering it correctly, you're going to notice that it's something that has to be set up. So right now, as I'm looking, notice that it's at an angle and the setting for it is going to be over here. We're not going to get too deep into it, but what that does is you can set up your angles so that you increment for any angle at 1 degree, 5 degrees. I can tell that this is set at 0 and 90 because it's only letting me go between those two. So that's going to be the default that AutoCAD is right now. But we can send that to 5-degree increments for angles or 10 degrees or whatever we want that to be. So I'm just going to turn that back off and hit escape. The next one that we have here is object snaps. Okay. And it's called running object snaps. If I click on the down arrow next to it, what we have is we have some of these things checked and some of them not checked. Okay. What these are all options for creating what we call good geometry. So when I draw lines, and I kind of randomly place them down, if I don't get, for instance, if I'm trying to get 2 lines to connect to one another, and if I don't grab the exact endpoint of it, it can look on the screen at this perspective like, oh, they're connected. But if you zoom in, they're actually not. Okay. So to ensure that it snaps to, this is why they're called object snaps, that it snaps and grabs endpoints, midpoints, centers. We can activate those so that in the background, they're always looking for those. And then that way, we're ensured those. Now, if you put you might say, well, why don't I put every single one on? Because we're going to notice that then it's going to, whatever you're closest to, it's going to snap to, and it's going to get annoying because it's almost going to be too many. Okay. So you kind of strategically pick the ones that are the ones that you use most. So endpoint is very popular. Center is very popular. Center of a circle. You want maybe another center to share that same center. Intersection is good. Another one I like a lot is perpendicular. I want another line to be perpendicular to another. So as we start to, get more familiar we'll continue to exercise and kind of revisit that. And then I think that's all that I need down there for right now. Okay. All right. On the intro -12 page, let's take a look there. Okay. This is our mouse. Okay. This is our mouse. That might not seem like a big deal. It's nothing super special, but in AutoCAD, our mouse buttons have specific jobs. Okay. So the left one, the left mouse, the left click is kind of like normal. It's just a regular pick. So we can pick on our icons. We can pick the points that we want to draw in our workspace. So it's kind of like just that basic generic, we're going to pick and tell AutoCAD what we want to do. The right mouse button serves a couple purposes. Number one, if I'm in a command and I right click, or if I select a feature and I right click, it gives me more options about it. Okay. And at times we'll see what that is. So that's just another like menu, but also it can serve as an enter key. Okay. It sounds really weird, but let's say I draw a line command and I end the line command. And I want to start a new line somewhere else. I can press the right button, and that's going to be an enter key. And enter means I want to do that last command again. So you can right click, you can hit the enter key, or the other enter key in AutoCAD is the space bar. Okay, so that's a couple different ways that you can like use the enter key. So the right button is an enter key for us so that we don't have to go to our keyboard. And then lastly, we've got the roller. Okay, the roller will do what we call a dynamic zoom in and out with just the roller itself. But we also can depress it, hold it, and then move around to pan. Okay, so as we put some more, geometry in place, we'll be kind of working with that as well. Okay, so so the mouse is probably going to be something to get a little bit used to. And then at the bottom here, it says the escape or canceling command. The escape, I always say, the escape key is your friend, especially when you're learning AutoCAD. It requires a certain sequence. So you have to tell it what you're going to do. And then I'm going to remind you and say this often, read your command line, because it's going to tell you what you need to do next. Because a lot of students will say, I don't know what to do next. Read your command line, and you'll get used to that. But if you also are like, I didn't want to do that, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I want to start over, just hit the escape key and it gets you out of whatever you're doing and you can start back over again. Okay, so escape key is your friend. Escape and undo. All right, undo can be done with that arrow going over to the left, but you can also do it as a shortcut with U enter. Okay, AutoCAD has about 4 ways of doing each one of their commands, and that's because of their evolution. So when I learned AutoCAD, which was early 90s, okay, I was using 2D AutoCAD at the company that I was working for. I was a typer, and at that time they still didn't have the really nice Windows environment. So I tended to keyboard almost everything, and all the commands have what we call a shortcut command, a keyboard shortcut command. So for instance, line command, I wouldn't like click the line command or even use the window or use the menus. I would do L enter. That was my line command. It gets you right into line command. Those shortcuts have still been incorporated in AutoCAD. They've never lost them because of us old timers. I can still, I could be away from AutoCAD for, 10 years and I could pick it up and I could start doing what I did before, not even worrying about the icons or the new environment because they've preserved those other ways of doing things. So the cool thing about AutoCAD is you do have a number of different options of how to do things. And I'm going to share those multiple ways with you all the time. You get to pick. There isn't a right way, whether you pick the icon to do the line or if you do the L enter, it's going to still get you to the same place. Okay. Or if you use the menu and go to draw and line, whatever method you prefer is how you can do it. Okay. So, so escape. There's also an online help. The online help in AutoCAD is going to be up here by the question mark. Okay, so if you're like, where is the blah, blah, blah command, or how can I do this, or how do you use this command? you can go into help and then you can do like a search like any other software and you can find the answer. Okay. All right. So, so feel free to use, you know, things like that. All right. So the next thing I just want to do is let's kind of delete a couple things. Like if we have like this kind of, you know, garbage on our screen right now, it's like, oh, I don't want this, that, or the other. How can I get rid of it? You'll notice up here on that home ribbon, we have an eraser. Okay. That's our erase or our delete command. So if I click on that eraser and I go down into my work area, you'll notice that I now have this little cursor that's a selection box. Okay. So what I can do is, one way to do it is I can singly select. Anytime I go over the top of it, notice that it shades it out. If I click, that means it's selected that. So it's going to preview for me what it's going to get rid of. And I can singly select any items. And once I have what I want selected done, I just simply hit enter and they're gone. Okay. And again, if I'm like, oops, I deleted too many things, I can do an undo and they come back and I can redo that command again. Okay. Another way that I can erase things, I can do it like in a window or a group. Okay. The next, I can do that erase again. And instead of singly selecting on things or hovering over them, I'm going to start a box. Okay. And this is a click. It's not a click and a drag. It's a click in the upper left-hand corner and a click in the lower right. So I'm going to start my first corner of my window, and you're going to notice that I'm going to go over the top. Now, as I go over the tops of things, they're not going to fully activate until that entire portion of that entity is in my pick box. Do you see that? Okay. Once I lower right click, now it's got them all selected and it's asking me, is this what you want? And if I hit enter, they're gone. Okay. Now, another way that I can do a pick box and do a window is to do that very same thing, erase. But now I'm going to start in the lower right-hand corner. I'm going to click and I'm going to go up and to the left. Now, anytime any portion of the entity is inside my pick box, that entire entity gets selected. So you see how I'm kind of not over the whole thing here. So this is going up and to the left. And when I left click up here, so a click again, not a click and a drag, I hit enter and now it's all gone. All right. So really 3 different ways there to erase something. Now, if I wanted to get at the erase command really quick, if you do enter, that's the keyboard shortcut. Okay. Or it's the icon. Or if I go up to modify menu and I go down, here's my erase there. Okay. So again, 3 ways of doing the very same thing. All right. Any questions? So good and fun, isn't it? All right. Now, whenever we're kind of done with AutoCAD, we need to leave and get out. All right. So before we leave and get out though, the way that the startup menu started for us is kind of a generic way of doing it. There's a better one. So before we leave here, we're gonna go down to our command line. Now our command line, we can type in there. So if you put your cursor down in there and you left click, we can start typing now. And what we're going to type is going to be startup, all one word, startup. Okay. And you're just going to hit enter. And right now in the little brackets, it says number 3. And that's the startup like style that we came in on. I don't like that style. Okay. There's a better one. We're going to do number 1. So we're just going to put in number 1. Just type, type in, I like doing it down on the command line. 1, and then enter. All right. Now nothing happened. You don't see anything because we're not, we just changed the startup menu. So now we're going to go and we're going to close out AutoCAD and we're going to pull it back up. And what we're going to do is we're going to see how it is a little bit different. So to exit out of AutoCAD, we're going to go back up to that A, we're going to arrow down and we're simply going to, oh, here it is, exit AutoCAD. They used to have it right down below here, but again, this is probably one of their little cool tweaks that so that they can justify 2024. I don't want to, say bad things about AutoCAD. It's a great program. But down here at exit AutoCAD 2024, this will shut down AutoCAD. And it's going to say, do you want to save? Just like any other program, you're going to say, I'm going to say no to this. Now, if you would just do close, that would just close the file that you had open and AutoCAD would still be open. But we want to shut down AutoCAD because we want to go back in. So what I'm going to do is we're going to double click and we're going to go back into AutoCAD just like we did before. Double click, go into AutoCAD. And now you're going to notice that our startup menu is a little different. This is what we changed to that startup one. So now you may have yours right here where it says open drawing. Does yours do that? Is it default to open drawing? You want to go to the next one over where it says new, okay, or start from scratch. Okay. Now, when you do the start from scratch here, what's really nice is you'll notice that we have an option for either imperial units or metric. Now, depending on you're going to kind of look ahead and kind of figure out what am I going to be working on, but we're going to just leave it as imperial or English. But if you know you're going to be working on a metric drawing, now you can just specify it's going to be millimeters then. Okay. So we're just going to leave it at imperial and we're just going to hit okay. And now when we get into AutoCAD, mine's going to give this message, yours isn't. It's just at the fresh screen now instead of having to X out or having to pick new. Okay, so it just starts for us a lot nicer. So so now you are all set. Now if you work on a different version, can I move this around? If you work on a different version, there we go, of AutoCAD, for instance, if you have it loaded on a PC or a laptop at home and you're working, you're going to have to set that individually on each machine. So right now, the next time that you log in here at WCTC on these computers, now you're all set. You won't have to do that startup one again. Okay. All right. Additionally, you're going to notice when you came back in, your coordinates are down there. Remember how we added that as a customization? Are your coordinates down there? Tell me they are. Okay, good. Yes, yes. So just like that startup. So anything that we changed, you're also going to notice, let me get kind of rid of some of these things. You're also going to notice that if you had grid on, I had grid off when I left, it's going to still be what it was before. Okay. It remembers those system settings as we leave. All right. So any questions so far? All right. I'm going to also ask, how is the Zoom working for you on the computers? Do you like it better than trying to look up at the screen? It's totally a personal preference, but some students kind of like that where it's closer as opposed to having to look up and down on the screen in the room. Okay. All right. And I think we have the wider screens in here, so they're okay to split, right? It works okay. All right. Awesome. So you can continue to do that if you so choose. All right, so we are going to be looking at chapter 1 now in our book. So I'm going to minimize my screen for right now. I'm going to go to our book, and our tutorial is going to be drawing this part right here, the first tutorial. There's actually, I believe, 2 of them in this. Shouldn't say that until I know for sure. The guide plate, there's 2 of them. Yeah, there's the guide plate and then there's a spacer design. So so we're going to notice that in the 2 tutorials that we do here in chapter 1, we're going to be doing a lot of circles, lines, and arcs. Okay, and again, that gets us a long way, but it also introduces us to, they're going to be simple parts. It just introduces us to the interface as well as how AutoCAD wants the inputs and such. So we're going to kind of go back to this. So if you want to kind of mark this page, you know, we're going to kind of go back and forth because we're going to need some of these dimensions. Now, as we start here, it has you go into and start AutoCAD. And then it kind of reviews, you know, the startup menu and such. And it also has you put in the show menu bar again. Since we did it, you should still have it in AutoCAD. This. Because when we came back in, it would remember that. So you should still have your 2 layers of menus. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So it remembers you. Now, again, though, if you use a different machine, or if you, you know, if you don't log in here at LT or at WCTC and instead you're on your home computer, you're going to have to reset that up. Okay. But then it'll only be that one time. It'll only be that one time. Okay, so that's the menu bar. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to check our drawing units, okay? Our drawing units are going to be how many decimal places are we going to work with? Because when we came in this time, we set it to imperial or like inches, feet and inches, English units. Now we want to set how many decimal places, okay? This again is going to be something that the system is going to remember from the last time that you set them. So we're going to go back into AutoCAD. And we are going to go to the Format tab, okay, from our menu up on the top layer. And we're going to go down to Units, okay, it's towards the bottom-ish. Click on Units. And now what we're going to do is you're going to notice that over on the left-hand side, we've got length, we've got angle. So we want to set like how we're going to see our units. So AutoCAD is used in a lot of different industries. It's used in architecture, it's used in electrical, it's used in civil engineering, and in mechanical engineering, we tend to stick with inches, okay? And we show our numbers in decimal form. So you'll notice that decimal is the default here. If we arrow down, you have other ways that you can call things out, okay? But we're going to stick with decimal. And then the precision. You'll notice here, if I arrow down, I can pick a different precision. Right now it's at 4 decimal places. AutoCAD is accurate to 15 decimal places. Okay, but that's a lot like to handle, right? Like it's a lot to look at. We don't want to do that. So this is again a personal preference. So what I like to land on, I think 4 is a good number, but if you wanted to do less or more, it's totally up to you. I'm going to leave mine at 4, okay, for length. So when I'm entering something in, I think of, especially in the English units, we a lot of times maybe have to put it to the closest fractional increment. So if I'm doing like a 16th or a 32nd, I need that 4th decimal place to kind of put it in there, right? And sometimes maybe even the 5th. So, so just be aware of that. Angles, we want to do the same thing. I like angle decimal degrees, but you can do it in, degrees, minutes, and seconds, and the radians, whatever you want. But we're going to leave it in, and our input's easiest to put it in decimal degrees. And then it's asking for what is your precision on those. Now, this one doesn't have any decimals. I'm going to put 2, okay? Because sometimes you want a 1.5 degrees or 1.25 degrees or something like that. That does come up. So, so I'm going to put two decimals on the degrees, okay? And then you're going to notice that it's just going to confirm for us, because we picked imperial when we came in. It's going to have the units in inches. Now, if you pick imperial and you're like, oh, shoots, I'm in here, I really want it to be in millimeters, you can just change it here in units, all right? You can change it to millimeters here, so it's not like you have to stick with what it was, or you have to go back out and shut AutoCAD down and go back in. You don't have to, you can change it right here, okay? So everything else looks good here, and then it's just wondering, international, we can see that down there as well. So I'm just gonna hit okay. And now you'll notice that if you did change it, from something other than 4, your coordinates down here are going to match however many decimal places we had on our units. Okay. Also, when we do our inputs, they're also going to match the 4 decimal places. Okay. Actually, I'm going to scooch this all the way up here. I think that should work. Okay. With that. So turning the page. Now, the next thing too, this is looking at limits. So at the bottom of page 1-6 and 1-7 is where I'm at. We want to set up the limits for our screen. Now, limits, when we set them up, when we have something where we're pulling in an existing drawing, it's already set for us. We don't have to worry about it. But when we're starting out new, sometimes we want to kind of set our perspective on our screen to what the units are going to be. Meaning, if I start drawing, sometimes if my limits are set way out, my lines, even if they're like 10 inches long, are going to be super tiny on the screen. Or if I'm zoomed way in and I have something that I'm drawing that's 10 inches, it could be like I'm way zoomed in on it and it's like huge, or past the limits of the screen. So I want to kind of just give it perspective so that when I'm drawing, I can kind of see most of the elements that I'm starting with. So a very popular formatting to start out with is like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Okay. Now, when we have an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, when we draw it, you know, drawing border wise, as we saw the last time we were together, most often it is going to be a horizontal on your 11-inch dimension and vertical at 8.5. Okay. So it's kind of like we're setting our paper, if you would. I know this is an 8.5 by 11, but we're setting it like this. And we want that longer dimension to be horizontal. Okay. Now, our limits are going to be in relationship to the 0, 0 of the screen. And where's the 0, 0 of my screen? Down here, right? This is called the UCS, Universal Coordinate System, I believe is what it's called. Okay, the UCS. And so down there is my 0, 0. We call it absolute 0. And so what I want to do is I want to set my drawing limits. Now my screen is elongated this way, so it's not going to be a perfect 8.5 by 11. Okay, but if I draw my limits, it's going to fit it so that if I would have an 8.5 by 11, it would fit on my paper here with maybe a little bit of extra this way and a little bit of extra this way. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go back up to my format menu up on the top, and we are going to set drawing limits. So it's 2 below where we were with our units, drawing limits. And now what it wants to do, we're going to read our command line at the bottom here. It says, where do you want your lower left-hand corner? Lower left-hand corner, we want at 0, 0. And notice in brackets, it already defaults to that. So I could either type in 0, 0, or I can just hit enter here because I'm going to accept the default. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to accept the default. If yours isn't 0, 0, then you want to put it up there. The next thing is we want to specify our right corner, our upper right-hand corner. What they have right now is they have 12, 9. So what that means is from my corner 0 here, my first limit is in the X direction, 12 inches over and 9 up. So my upper right-hand corner is up there, okay? Now, using 9 and 12 is a very common thing to do, just based on the fact you could use 8.5 by 11. But let's use 8.5 by 11 because that's going to be the size paper that we want to put in. So I'm just going to click down in my command line down there, and I'm going to put 8.5, 11. Okay, I'm sorry. Our horizontal has to be first. I say 8.5 by 11s, but it should be 11, 8.5. If you hit enter before I corrected you, just go back into format, drawing limits, and then we're gonna accept the first ones and then do 11, 8.5. Once I hit enter, doesn't even seem like anything happened, right? Doesn't. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna zoom the screen so that it fits those limits on. And again, it's not gonna look like anything's happening because we don't have anything drawn to see like how it actually moves. Okay, so we are going to do a zoom. Now, again, just like anything else, Zoom has 4 different ways that we can do the very same thing. Okay, I'm going to teach you right off the bat the easiest way to do it. Okay, and it is a quick command. So it is going to be, you're going to hit Z on your keyboard, Z, enter. And notice that when I hit Z, it's like, hey, do you want any one of these? You could click Zoom right now. Okay, or just hit enter to accept it. Zoom is going to be the one because that's the quick command for it. Z, enter. And then now at the bottom it says, do you want to zoom all? Do you want to use that zoom center, dynamic extends, There's all these different things. We will have a place where we're going to be focusing on what do all these do. But the one that we want to do is zoom all. So notice that this blue A is there. That means if you just put an A in, you don't have to type the whole thing. But if you just go down into your command line and you go A, enter, and it doesn't have to be capital, just put A in, it zoomed everything. Again, nothing's on the screen, so we don't really see anything. But how can we confirm that it was okay? Well, we can go down here. We can watch our coordinates. Make sure that down at that corner, we've got a 0, 0. Oopsie. So Z, enter, all enter. There we go. So down at our 0, 0, why is my seeing negative? Where's my 0, 0? My 0, 0. Is your 0, 0 still down in the lower left-hand corner? If you go there, I don't know why mine's not. But if I go upper right here-ish, like in this corner here, I should be seeing, and I am, so I'm not sure why, I am seeing 10.5 by 8.5. So that means I'm 10.5 over from my 0, 8.5 up. So I have an 11 by an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, if you would, on my screen right now, which is good. I'm gonna not worry about my UCS. So I'm good up here. All right, so that's setting our drawing limits. Now, why is that going to help us? If we look back at our drawing, at the very beginning that we're going to be creating of the chapter 1, this right here, okay? If you notice the sizes that we have here, okay? This is 8 inches, and it's not easy to necessarily see. This is 6 inches, the height is 6.5. That would fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. When you look at a drawing that you're going to start, and you kind of, see the dimensions that you're going to be drawing, that's where the limits kind of come in, so that as you're drawing, it's a reasonable size on the screen, as opposed to being super small or super big. Okay. Now you can always zoom to get it where you need it to be, but it's important to understand what limits do and what they are, and why we would use them. Okay. So now we're going to start drawing. So on page 1-8, scooch this up to the top. On page 1-8 here, we're going to start, working with lines, and we're going to do that through using and creating a little star here. Okay, something very simple. So we are going to, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go back into AutoCAD and activate my screen. And we're going to start by simply using the line command and using the order of picks or the points that we see on that star. So we're going to start with that lower left-hand corner of our star to be 1. And we're going to go up diagonally to 2, over to 3, 4, 5, and then we're gonna close it. So to do that, remember, AutoCAD always needs to know, what do you want to do first? And I want to draw a line. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to come back down in here. And it's asking me, now again, I've got this dynamic input. I can either answer that question on my command line, or I can do it right up by my cursor. Okay, so it's saying specify your first point. Now remember, I could, if I knew the coordinates where I wanted this first point to be, and at times we will, I could enter in my X and Y values right now. But I'm just going to use my left pick button on my mouse, and we're just going to kind of start like here-ish. And we're not worried about size. We also want to make sure we do not have ortho on. Do not have ortho on. Make sure that that's off. Otherwise, you're only going to go horizontal or vertical. You're also going to want to make sure that your snap is off as well. So these little dots down here, we want to take that off, because we want to kind of freely move around. Okay. And I'm simply going to go up and to the right, random distance. It is not important. Over to the left. Not really good at stars, obviously. Down and to the right, up, and then, now, remember what I said about, we want to make sure that we get down to, and we can, get to an endpoint and like connect those ends, especially when we need to. So we do want to close this star. There's 2 ways we can do it. Because we have our object snaps on, remember when we looked at those object snaps, we had endpoint on. So endpoint is on. So if I go down and I get close to, see how I get close to that endpoint, a green box appears. And that means, oh, if you click right now, when that green box appears, it's going to snap to that endpoint. So you can do it then. The other thing that you can do is you can just say, if I'm on a continuous line and I haven't started and stopped anywhere in between here, this is just the same line command all the way through, I can hit C for close. So if I go C, enter, it closes it and it goes back to the endpoint. So if you're on a continuous line like this and you know that you just want to close it, you can use the C command, or you can hover, get close, and you can find that endpoint. Okay. Now endpoint won't appear unless you've got your object snaps activated and your running object snaps has the endpoint checked. Just so you know, if you uncheck it or it's not on, you're not going to get that pick box. And you might wonder, like, wait a second, I'm supposed to get that pick box. It might not be on. So you want to check that. Okay. How did that go? You drew a star. So good. So good. Now let's let's change some things, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we are gonna actually add the snaps, okay? Now, again, this is kind of to show you that difference between snaps are on, snaps are off, okay? And how it can either help or hinder. So I'm gonna click my snaps on, which are the little dots, all right? And we're gonna go back up into the line command. And we're gonna create a star again. Now, as you're here, you're gonna notice after I click my line command, it's only going to grab wherever my snaps are. Do you see that? Now, if you have your grid on, you're going to notice that it's the endpoints of the grid. So you could put the grid on and you're going to notice that those correspond to those grid spacings. So now just start drawing your star. And sometimes this can help and sometimes it doesn't. Okay. And then once you get it ended, you can just hit escape. I think my star does look a little better. Okay. So again, it's a drawing aid, but I wanted to get you that feeling for, yeah, kind of see what that does. Now, let's say, as I said earlier, the important thing about snap is the distance between them, okay? Because it has to correspond probably to every single dimension that you're going to be drawing, at least when you're using the snap. So if we go to that little down arrow next to the snap, we have snap settings, okay? We're going to go to snap settings, and this is where you can change the increments if you wanted to. So if you're like, I'm really a fan of the snap, okay, I really like snap. And if I look at my dimensions, I want them all to be on this increment because that seems to be what it is. Now, again, as we get further along, it's not going to be as common that you have increments that are the same for every single dimension, but might work out sometimes. So here you're going to notice that you have your snapping X and your snapping Y. Right now they're set to ½ an inch increments, okay, or ½ a unit increments. And then it has equal X and Y. And then notice that we have grid on, and that means it's gonna match whatever the snap is as well. Okay, so that's why you see it happen at those endpoints. So I'm just gonna accept that. If you wanted to change it to something else, like 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, or whatever it might be, you can do that and hit okay. But that's why it's snapping to where it is. Those are ½ inch increments that it's set at, and it won't let you go anywhere in between when the snap is on. So it's a different feel and you're constricted. Okay. All right. So we did snap mode on. I'm going to turn my snap mode off but again, it's a great aid at the beginning, especially if you're one of those people that likes really straight lines and I want it to be even. Snap is kind of nice. Okay. It like makes you feel better. All right. Now what we want to do is let's kind of play around again. Let's erase some things. Okay. So I don't really like my first star. My second one looks better. So I want to erase it. So I have a couple different ways. I'm going to kind of review those again. We're going to hit the erase command here up on the top, the pencil with the eraser, or you can hit E enter. That's erase as well. Now, a couple options here. I can individually go over the top and singly select. And when I singly select, I'm left clicking on it. Okay. Once I have everything selected that I want to get rid of, I simply hit enter. Okay. That one I have to hit enter. I can't hit escape. It'll actually stop the command then. Okay. Let's say I want to put a window around. Remember, there's 2 windows that I can do. So if I go up to erase again, the first window I can do upper left hand down to over right, but it has to be fully in the box for it to actually select. So you see how this one is fully in my box? It's selected then. So I'm going to hit my button at the bottom right-hand corner and then hit enter. And then the other selection I can make is I can erase and I can start my window in the lower left. It's going to have a green look to it, and any part of that gets into my box gets fully selected. I hit my left mouse button to stop the window and then hit enter to get rid of that. Okay. I could have done that all with one window if I wanted to, but I wanted to kind of show you the different options. Okay. So depending on, what you're trying to delete. So we talked about coordinate system. I'm going to go back to our book here again, kind of continue on here in chapter 1. Oops. Okay. And we're just going to do a little bit of a review of the Cartesian coordinate system, okay? The Cartesian coordinate system is a system that utilizes position relative to a 0, 0. And that 0, 0 is at the intersection of what would be an XY coordinate system, right? So if my Y's are always my verticals, my X's are going to be my horizontals, okay? So at the intersection here of that coordinate system, that is called 0, 0, right? Right? It's where we have that intersection. Now, when we look at a Cartesian coordinate system, there are 4 quadrants for which points can be in. They can be in the first quadrant, which is, up and to the right. They can be in the second quadrant. So as I move around, if you would, in a counterclockwise direction, first quadrant, second quadrant, third and fourth quadrant, okay? Now in AutoCAD, as I said earlier, it recognizes that 0, 0. It recognizes and uses this coordinate system, and it says that, and I'm going to kind of extend this out, this is 0 degrees, okay? So if this is 0 degrees, anything specified that is going up and in a counterclockwise direction, so counterclockwise, is going to be a positive angle. So if I put in 45 degrees, that means that it's going to be 45 degrees in this direction. And I would be in, like, if you would, that first quadrant. Okay. If I put in a negative 45, that's going to be going in a clockwise direction. That's going to be negative. So this would be negative 45 from 0 degrees. Okay. So counterclockwise rotations are positive in AutoCAD in most all coordinate systems, because of this being your first quadrant, right? We say 90, 180, 270, and then back to 0 or 360, right? Right. Okay. So it really goes along with kind of that standard. It redoes that. Now, the way we can put in coordinates relative to that 0, 0 is we specify first how far horizontally is it from that 0, 0 and how far vertically it is, right? Now, any dimensions or any numbers that we give, any distances, if they're positive, going to the right, that's a positive X direction. If it's a negative X direction, it's going to be going to the left of our 0, 0, right? And then anything positive in the vertical direction is going to go up, and anything negative is going to go down, right? Now, if I'm in my first quadrant, you'll notice that if I'm going to specify my XY coordinate right here, that's going to be the X, comma, the Y. Because that distance is going to the right of my 0 and up from my 0, both of those values would be positive, right? Anything in that first quadrant, everything's positive, right? Position wise, no matter what I do, I can put, any combination of numbers, but if they're both positive, I'm in the first quadrant. Kind of gives me perspective of where I'm at. If I'm over here and I have a point, I am going to have a negative X value. Do you see that? It's going to be to the left of the 0. This is going to be a negative X, but it's still going to be a positive Y. So a negative X, positive Y, second quadrant, right? If I have a point down here, this is going to be negative X and down negative Y. So negative X, negative Y, third quadrant. You guys all remember this from math? It's kind of coming back a little bit. Yeah, it's a reapplication of that. And then anything in my fourth quadrant, if I'm down over here, this is going to be a positive X, comma, negative Y. I'll that in there a little bit. Positive X, negative Y. I'm down in the fourth quadrant. Okay. Is this important to me? Yes and no, because we're going to have the opportunity to input values when we want to accurately using these coordinates. And we got to know where we're at in relationship to, for instance, a 0, 0. Okay, absolute 0, 0. Now, the other way that I can put coordinates in is what we call a polar coordinate. Okay, polar coordinate. Polar coordinate is over here. So this is polar. Okay. Polar coordinate still has that 0, 0. Here is my X, here is my Y, and we still have 0 degrees starting at that positive X axis. So now when I put this in, I can specify how long it's going to be. That's what its R or radius would be. This was kind of referring to. How long is that line and at what angle is it? And again, a positive angle, in this case, it's using the Greek letter theta. Positive angle means that I'm going to be counterclockwise from my 0 degrees. 0 degrees is always going to be that horizontal x-axis. Always, 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 always. Negative is going to be clockwise. Positive is going to be counterclockwise. Okay. Now let's talk about absolute and relative coordinates. Absolute and relative coordinates. Absolute coordinates are going to be when I specify how far a point is away from my 0, my 0, 0 in AutoCAD. Okay. So my 0, 0 is down here in the lower left-hand corner. Okay. Should be identified by my UCS, but for some reason it's not. I don't know why. Sometimes technology is like that. And when I specify an absolute coordinate, that means from that 0, 0, where the X and Y come together of my screen, of my world, my universal coordinate system, that means it's going to be, that distance away, X comma Y. So if it's a positive, X and Y, I'm in that upper, up and to the right. If I'm in that any other quadrant, it's going to be that relative to that 0, 0. That's absolute. Absolute is always going back to the 0, 0 of AutoCAD. Okay. Relative, on the other hand, relative is going to be in relationship to an existing point, another reference. Okay. So relative to means, all right, if I'm moving along here, and I don't want to go back to the 0, 0, but I've put a point down, and now I just want to go straight up from this point. I don't want to figure out what its distance is from the 0, 0 on my screen. I can say, okay, I'm going to be relative to this point. I have like a new home I'm identifying. And now my next point is relative to where I'm at. Okay. So in that case, I have to let AutoCAD know I'm no longer going to put absolute coordinates in. Absolute coordinates are just going to be your XY values relative to 0, 0. If I want to put something in relative to an existing point that I'm currently on, I have to start it with the @ symbol. So now, for instance, if I move, I have my points going along, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I just want to be 1 inch to the right of this point. I'm going to put the @ symbol, 1, 0, because I don't want to be up from that point. I'm just going to go in one direction or another. Okay, so relative to an existing point. When I want to put a polar value in, I need to put the @ symbol first. The distance that my line is going to be, how long that distance is going to be, like radius. And then I'm going to use the less than symbol to specify the angle. And again, that angle, when it's positive, is going to be counterclockwise from 0. And when it's negative, it's going to be clockwise from 0. Okay. So that's kind of, just kind of looking at some things. Now, on page 119, we're going to get ready to start drawing this guide plate. Okay. But before we get into this, let's take a short break. Okay. I can see you guys are going to be antsy. That's okay. It's long. It's a lot. Okay. So let's, I'm going to stop recording for the moment, and then I'm going to let you guys take how about come back at 9:35. Does that sound, wait, no, 9:30, 9:40. I'll give you a good 10 minutes. Okay. And I'm just going to, there we go. Okay. So right now, before I get started on my guide plate, I kind of need to get rid of my star. Okay. Now I could go ahead and I could delete that, or I can just start new. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm simply going to go up to my quick access menu up here, and just to the right of that A is where the new command is. So I'm going to click on new, and it's going to say, okay, you want a new drawing. And this looks familiar to us. We're going to look at the units on page 119. As I look at those units, it may not be obvious, but those are English units. When I see like a 6.5, 5.5, it could be millimeters, but we're going to do it in English units. So we're going to keep this in imperial, and we're simply going to say, okay. I'm simply going to say, okay. Now, something I do want to let you know is that when we look at the drawing here, you're going to notice there's only one decimal place. Okay, one decimal place. That's the decimal place for the dimensions on the part. Okay, when we draw, we want to draw more accurate than that. So you can leave your 4 decimal places. I'm going to say you don't want to change the accuracy on your screen to reflect necessarily what the dimensions are. When we dimension, we can change those decimal points, but when we draw, we want to be nice and accurate. Okay, so we're going to leave our coordinates and the number of decimal places exactly where it was. Now, as we look at this drawing, I'm not going to follow perfectly what the book is doing. I'm going to tell you that, but I encourage you to go through the tutorial to get their instruction as well, because they turn the snaps on and stuff like that. Again, it's going to be something that's a good way to get started, but I want to kind of push you in the direction of how you're going to be doing things. So I'm not going to use the, I am not going to use the snap function. What I am going to do though, is I'm going to use inputting the coordinates for where things are at. So that means that I am going to look at this and I'm going to determine where is a good place. And I'm going to look at what dimensions do I have. So now someplace you could start could be down in this lower left-hand corner. Okay. And that's a very popular place to start. But if I look at this, I could draw a line from that point, go over to the right, go up to the right and up, and I'd have to stop because I don't have a dimension for that angle, if you would. I could then go back up and do another line and go over and then connect them at the end. Okay. So that's 2 lines. The other thing I could do is I could start at this corner right here and I could make my way all the way around. Okay. I would have to do probably a little bit of math, but I could make one continuous line and then close it at the end, which sounds pretty efficient. Or I could start up at this corner and go all the way around. Okay. Does anybody have a preference? The last one to the left?
No, the bottom.
The bottom left? Okay, we want to start on the bottom left. Is anybody opposed to that? It just means that we're going to be doing 2 lines. We're going to be doing this line here, and then we're going to be doing this line here. And then we're going to be connecting with a separate line at the end. Okay, so let's do that. It's a very valid way of doing it. So I'm going to go into my drawing too. I'm going to minimize this one more time. When I go over my AutoCAD here, you're going to notice that I have 2 instances open. I do not have 2 sessions of AutoCAD open. I have 1 session of AutoCAD open, but I've got 2 drawings open. The first one, remember, I didn't close that. I just started a new one, and now it's calling my new one drawing 2. Okay, it gives it a generic heading. So I'm going to click on that one. You can have multiple drawings open in the same session of AutoCAD. If you have super complex big files though, it'll start bogging the system down. Okay. And I would say I wouldn't go beyond maybe 4 drawings because it starts then having to use some RAM, and then you might notice some glitchiness or it's slowing down. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're in AutoCAD and I want to start drawing. Now, since I'm going to start at that lower left-hand corner, that's going to be my 0, 0. Okay, that's going to be my 0, 0. So I'm going to start my line command, and it's going to ask me, where do you want to start? Now, I could randomly start picking a point. It's totally fine. But since I've got coordinates here that I can directly enter from my drawing, why not start my first point in that lower left-hand corner at 0, 0? Okay, so I'm simply going to key in 0, 0, enter. And now you're going to notice it even might be off the screen depending on your zooming or where it's at. You're going to notice that it's just going to randomly pick that point. So what I like to do, because I'm not exactly sure where it's at, I'm just going to kind of be in the center of the screen here. And while I'm still in the line command, I'm going to use the roller. I'm not going to press the roller, but I'm going to just increment it, you know, forward or back until I can see it on the screen. Do you guys see that? Now I'm still in my line command. I haven't ended it, but I'm able to dynamically zoom with my roller by just kind of going 1 increment back or forward. Does everybody see their 0, 0 now, like where they're starting on the screen? Okay. All right. Now the next thing is it wants to know the next point now. Now what we did in the past is we just picked with our cursor, our left cursor, but now I've got dimensions, right? I've got dimensions. So I'm going to look back at my drawing. So I want to create this line. I'm going to go all the way to the right. So I want to create this length right here. So here's my 0, 0. I'm going to go all the way to the right. So you'll notice that the overall length is 8, but then it's 2.5 back to that point. So what's my dimension from here to here? How long is that line? So 8 minus 2.5. Yeah, 5.5, right? So I have already put 0, 0 in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the coordinate for that point. Do you see how the coordinate for that point is going to be 5.5 x to the right, positive 5.5, comma 0, because I'm not going up or down along that line. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD. And now I'm going to just put in, I'm not going to click with my left. It's saying, where do you want to specify that next point? I'm going to put in 5.5. Oopsie, I got to click down in here. 5.5, comma 0. Enter. Hold on. Let me try again. I think because I'm going back and forth, I have to activate my screen, and sometimes, so I'm going to do my 0, comma 0, enter. And then I'm just going to push this over to the right. My next point is going to be 5.5, comma 0, enter. There we go. Do you guys get a horizontal line that's 5.5 to the right of your 0, 0? That's what you should get. All right. Anybody need another demonstration of that, or you're good for right now? Okay. Now what we're going to do is we are going to find the coordinate of our next point. Okay. So if I go back, now I'm at this point right here, right? And I want to find that point. Now, if I'm in absolute mode, meaning absolute, I'm always going to reference the point back to 0, 0. I would need to find what is it's over to the right, 5.5, and up 2.5. But I'm on this point right here. And all I need to do is go 2.5 up. Remember the relative input? What do I have to do to get into relative mode so that I can input my coordinate relative to where I'm at? Do you remember the symbol I want to use? I want to use a relative coordinate here to go straight up. The at. Exactly, the at symbol. Awesome. So I'm going to go back to, oopsie. Hold on, I think I lost my screen here. Just want to make sure that's back. Yeah, it is. Okay. And I'm going to go to AutoCAD, back over here. And now I want to go straight up from here. I'm not going to worry about the 0, 0 for the moment. So to do that, my next point, I need to put the at symbol in front. So I'm going to do Shift 2, which is the at symbol. Notice it populated in front of my coordinate. And now I'm going to put in my X coordinate from where I'm at. I'm not going to go left or right. So my X coordinate, do you see, is going to be 0, comma, a positive 2.5 going straight up, right? So I'm going to be 0, comma, 2.5, enter. Straight up from where I was at. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to the right and I'm going to use that same relative. So if I'm on this point right here, I need to go to the right 2.5. So what would my coordinates be? What do I have to do? What do I have to key in if I'm going to do it relative to the point I'm at? Go ahead. At 2.5, comma 0. Yeah, absolutely. So now I'm going to go, no, it's relative, not absolute. At 2.5, comma 0, enter. All right, there I am. Now from this point, relative to this point, I'm going to go straight up. How far? Well, 5.5 minus 2.5 is 3, right? 3. So what is my entry that I'm going to put for my next point relative to where I'm at right now? At symbol first, right? At, I want to go straight up. What is my X coordinate? 0, comma 3, right? Positive 3 because I'm going to go up. So I'm going to do at 0, comma 3, enter. There it is. Now, at this point, I'm at the end of the road on this side, right? Because I don't have a dimension going up and to the left. I maybe could figure it out. but I like to go with dimensions that were given. So all I'm going to do, how do I want to end my line command here? I have one of two choices. I can either do enter or escape. Okay. I always default to escape. I don't know why, but enter will do it as well. Okay. So that's my line over there. I'm going to go back to 0, 0. I'm going to start over here and now we're going to draw the left side. Okay. So I'm going to go to my drawing. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my 0, 0. So I'm going to start a line and my first point is going to be 0, 0. Then what we're going to do is our next point is going to go straight up from here. Now, since we're on 0, 0, we can just simply put in 0, 6.5, right? Or we could do at 0, 6.5. They would really be the same thing. Then we're going to go up to the top here, and then we're going to go to the right. We're going to use this as a relative point. And what we're going to do is we're going to key in a positive 6.5, 0. So we're going to go 6.5 to the right. And we're going to end over here. So go ahead and put those two in if you want to, or follow along with me. It's up to you. Okay. So line command, I'm going to start the line command, click on that icon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to specify our 0, 0 as our first point. And then we're going to do the, I'm going to do the at symbol, at relative to the point that I'm on, even though it's 0, 0. X coordinate is 0 because I'm going straight up. I don't want to go left or right, comma 6.5. Enter. Now I'm straight up. And then the one that I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as my relative position. So I'm going to start with the at symbol. And this time I'm going to go 6.5 to the right. So a positive 6.5. And then comma 0. There we go. Now, I'm still in my line command, and you'll notice that I have my object snaps on. And if I go close to that endpoint, do you see how it activates that endpoint? At this point, I could click, and then it would be a closed shape. Okay, I can click that. And then I can hit the escape or the enter key to end that command. So we have our perimeter around the outside. How did that go? Is it good? Awesome. Okay. So lines. Now, I always like to tell people save often or save at a point where you don't want to redo what you just did. Does anybody want to redo what we just did? No. Okay. So we're going to go and we're going to save this. So I am going to go up and we're going to go to that red arrow down. And we're going to go to save as. Right now, the default is it's drawing 2. That's just AutoCAD's generic name for that window file that it opened. So what I want to do is when I go into save as, I have the ability to navigate to a directory where I want to save this. Now, you could save it on your flash drive. Remember, we want to have a flash drive to do some backups, right? Just in case. Or you could navigate to your OneDrive, okay? So I am going to, I'm going to look here. Here's my OneDrive. I have mechanical design classes. I set up a folder here. And then I have tech drafting. And I'm just gonna save it here. Now, once I get to where I want to save it, now you'll notice a couple things. Down here at the bottom is where I'm going to add my title, but I want to make sure that my file type is an AutoCAD. Now it says 2018. That's just the most current version of the file saving type that it is. It's still the same, still a 2024 version, but it just saves it in that type. But what's important here is it's going to save it as a .dwg. DWG is going to be a drawing file extension for AutoCAD. We can only pull up AutoCAD files in an AutoCAD software, okay? So it's at DWG, which is good. And then I just want to change. So you can go in here. If you click on this, you can change and, call it what you want in a text editing mode. So I'm going to call it guide plate. Now you don't have to put .dwg because it's going to add that extension because it's selected down below. Okay. If it's not there for some reason, you can always arrow down and these are all the types that you can put in, but by default, it should be 2018 AutoCAD. And then we're simply just going to hit save. Now, what you're going to notice is that when I look up at the top here, in the middle of my screen at the very top, it used to say drawing 2, but now it's going to give me the path. And then if it would be long enough to see it here, if your screen is long enough, you're going to see the actual file name in there as well. So now you know that you have it saved as that title. Okay. Well, there we are. Okay, so we're going to continue on. We're not done yet. We're going to continue on. We have to put 2 circles in. Let's look back at our drawing. Okay. So we've got 2 circles. The first circle right here, you're going to notice that we have coordinates to its center from the 0, 0 that we had. So when we put in this circle, we're going to be able to identify its center. So a circle is going to be drawn based on its center location. We'll be able to reference it really from the 0, 0. So we're going to go up 3, or I'm sorry, over 2.5 and up 3. So it's going to be a 2.5 comma 3 coordinate from our 0, 0. And then you'll notice that we're given a diameter. That symbol with a circle with the slash through it is a diameter symbol, meaning it's the distance across the circle. Okay. So when we go back, we're going to notice that AutoCAD has a way to put in circles in a number of different ways. So over from line, past polyline, we're going to be going over to the circle. Now, in our menu here, you're going to notice underneath circle, there's this little triangle. That means that there's more than one way to enter in a circle. Let's look at how many. If we click on that little down arrow underneath circle, there are a number of different ways that we can actually put a circle in, depending on the information that we have. The default that AutoCAD has up is center radius. So radius is always going to be the distance from the center to the outer edge. So half of the diameter. You could put that in, but it also has a center diameter. And if I have information that is a diameter, I just like directly putting it in. So I like to choose the one that goes along with it. So I'm going to click this second one here. Okay. Now, once I click it, it kind of goes into circle mode. And if you're wondering, what am I supposed to do next? What do? I read the command line and it says, specify the center point of that circle. Okay. Now I could left click, but if I would left click and randomly put it here and I would try to dial it in, I'm never going to get it perfectly to 2.5 over and 3 up, right? So I want to key in these coordinates. So as I go from 0, 0, which is right down here, my location is going to be 2.5 comma 3, enter. So the 2.5 in the X to the right and 3 up. Now notice that it jumped to the center of my circle being there. Perfect. That's exactly, it looks like exactly where I want it. Now it's asking me, what do I want to do next? I want to specify the diameter. Specify the diameter. So I'm just going to key in 2.5 and then I'm going to hit enter. Oh, and it's there. Okay. So if you're ever wondering, what's the next thing I do? Read the command line. And if you're kind of fumbled up, hit the escape key, start over. Can't ruin anything. All right, we're here. This is so good. One more circle. One more circle. So I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at the dimensions that I have here. I can just go like this. There we go. Look at the dimensions and you'll notice this time it's coming from a different corner. Now I could figure out what the numbers would be from my 0, 0, right? I could. But I have something else that I can do that I'm going to show you. We're going to get fancy. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD and we are going to pull out an Object Snaps menu. Okay. Now to do that, we're going to go up to tools. Yep. We're going to go up to tools. Oopsie. Tools. Click on that, left click. We're going to go to toolbars and you'll notice that there's a flyout here. We want to click on AutoCAD, not Express. We want to go on AutoCAD. And then now what we want to do is we want to go down and we want to find Object Snaps. Okay. Object Snaps. This is different than running Object Snaps, which are down at the bottom. They're related, but they're not the same. So I'm going to go to Object Snaps and this Object Snaps, it's gonna populate somewhere on your screen. So you're gonna want to kind of look for it. And all you want to do is where there's these little vertical dots. Oopsie, I'm sorry, vertical dots. I want to just place it like on my screen. I want to be able to see those values. Now mine, I don't have as much room. I'm gonna dock it alongside over here. There we go. Push it along. There we go. It's going to be vertical. That way it doesn't take up too much space, but you could put it horizontal as well. I just have it competing with my Zoom business. I normally would have it underneath here. Now, what this is this is a menu of all the object snaps that I have available to me, or a toolbar, and it just has the icons. But if I hover over them, you're going to notice, well, I can pick the center of a circle, or I can, go to an intersection. I can go to an endpoint. But above those, there are two of them that are right here. There's the second one from the top. This is the one that I want to use. This says snap from. This says snap from. Okay. So in this case, remember how my 0, 0 is in the bottom left-hand corner? And if I would want to put those coordinates in, I'd have to do a little bit of math to figure it out. But I have the dimensions from this upper left-hand corner. You see that? I have, 5 over to the right from that corner, and I have 1.5 inches down. So right here is where my center point is, but it's relative to that point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, even though I don't have like a line going on right now, I can click on that snap from, okay, when I want to specify my center point. So I need to activate my circle command. Now you'll notice something about the circle command, and this is true for anything that has stacked commands underneath it. It's going to remember the last one that you did. So notice that center diameter is on top, not the center radius that was there originally. So I'm just going to click on it because I do know the diameter, and it's going to ask me specify your center point. Now, this is where, before I specify it, I want to say snap from. So I'm going to click on that little icon, snap from, and I'm going to snap on the end point of that upper left-hand corner. Now I'm going to be relative to that point right there. So since I'm going to be relative and I'm going to enter in my dimensions, I'm now going to add in the @ symbol, and it's going to be 5, negative 1.5. Why did I put the negative in there? I'm going down from where I just snapped from, right? So now I'm just going to hit enter. Look at that. My center is starting where I want it to be. And now what does it want me to do? I'm not done. I just put the location in. Now I need to add what? The diameter. How do I know that? What did you do? You read the command line. That's what you did. Okay. I want to get you used to that, because so often we're like, I just want to click and I just want to put numbers in. And what am I doing? Read the command line. It'll tell you. And that needs to be 1.5. Enter. Oh, look at that. Looks like we're done. No, not a hard part, but did you kind of learn some things along the way? The snap from is going to come in handy for us. It really is, because we're going to find that a lot of times we don't have dimensions all coming from one corner. All right. And we might have them relative to other places. And we want to utilize those. Okay. So snap from is really good. All right. So now that we have our part done, we want to save it again, right? So you can just simply go up in our quick access because we've named it. If you leave it at drawing 2, it's going to remain at drawing 2. We don't want that. We want to save it as what it is. It's a guide plate. But now that I have it saved to drawing 2, or I'm sorry, we have it saved to guide plate, I can see that I have it up here. If I just hit the save button, which is the first one, not the one with the pencil, it's just going to simply save it to that location. If you want to do a save as, and let's say you want to do a backup, then you want to do a save as, and then save as, then you want to navigate to where you want to go, right? You want to navigate to where you want to go. Maybe it's going to be on your flash drive. So you want to select your flash drive and you want to save it there. Okay. Or wherever. Right. Okay. But now I am ready and I'm done, right? I'm done with my drawing. So what we are going to do, actually, I'm going to push this down here. We are going to make this as large on the screen as possible. All right. As large on the screen as possible. So I am going to zoom. So it's big. So remember, you can do zoom through the menu if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary to click. I'm just going to do Z, enter. Okay. Z, enter. Did it go in? I don't know if it did. Let me try again. Z, enter. And now it goes into the zoom. I can zoom all, I can zoom extents, I can zoom scale. I like to do extents because then it's gonna fill the entire screen for me. E, enter, gosh darn it, I think I hit something on accident. Undo, there we go. Z, enter, E, enter. All right, now it's gonna be on the screen for me, okay? Now, this is nice and large so that I can take a screenshot of it, all right? I'm gonna take a screenshot of it so that I can put it into a document and hand it in, okay? Now, to take a screenshot, I like to use the Windows key, Shift S, all at the same time. It's like a snip, I think they call it a snipping tool. It's not working on yours? Oh. Yeah, so I've got Windows key, Shift S, and then it goes to this. And what you want to do is you want to capture all the way around. You're not doing it.
Can you just go to the bottom search bar in the Windows, and the Windows bar at the bottom of this Windows taskbar, and search snipping tool?
Down here?
Yeah.
Snipping tool. Oh, okay, for everybody. But you have to do that each time you do it? Oh, that's sucky.
Yeah, on my computer at home, I use Windows Shift S all the time. I don't know why.
I don't either. Does anybody know another way we can, you could pin this to the taskbar? The little arrow?
Yeah, just open it and then right click.
Yeah, there should be like 3 dots that say pins to my taskbar.
This one right here?
Or if you
Well,
go if you go into the search itself, the Windows search, Google search.
Down here.
And then
There's my-
go to the snipping tool again. Yeah.
So I'm gonna click on it.
Right.
Like find the actual app.
Yeah, that's Googling it. That's just.
Oh, I thought it wasn't, isn't this the one? No?
No,
That's
the
not-
recent search. You have to search it in the bar. Yeah.
This one,
Yeah.
right? This bar right here. Snipping
Yeah, that right
tool.
click.
Oh, I want the app one. Right click it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
In the tab.
Pin a taskbar.
There now.
It's in there. Where? Where do you see it? You can, of course. I need lots of help here. I'm not well, the Windows Shift S worked for me. Like, so I'm good, but I want to make sure everybody can. So if you go to there, I think you got to click in there.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think it's put it on, but
Snipping tool app.
Open this.
I don't know.
Okay, so you
Then
left
once
click
it's-
it. Oh, and then right click it when it's down there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I was right clicking too soon. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, so now let's try that again. So if we're in AutoCAD, I'll go into my guide plate. So now I have that snipping tool on your taskbar. Everybody got that? You guys all got it before I did. Now we'll click it and new. Oh, this is,
Yeah, the box, yeah, just ignore the box.
all right, okay, and then you can do, okay. I don't know what it just did, but now it's on my clipboard, I'm assuming.
And you hit file up on top. That's what I-
Oh my gosh, it's so much easier using my Windows Shift S.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Are you guys comfortable with this snipping tool? You guys are okay with it? Because I'm
Yeah, I've used
confused.
print screen. The print screen button.
Does the print screen button work? I don't know. That's like from the 1980s.
I don't think I've ever touched the print screen. I found the print screen.
Okay, so nobody in the room can use Windows Shift S. Nobody.
That might just be like the scale on these computers.
But if you do this, so now I've got this.
Screenshot of that.
So then now I want to do a file, save as, and then I'm going to call it guide plate. Sorry, this isn't the way I normally do it because I was gonna show you how I did it and it's a PNG.
That'll be fine. Do you want it on PNG?
No, I don't want it. I don't like any of this.
Come on, Jake. You can then deposit it into that Word document. Oh, do you want it in a PDF?
I will, yeah, see. I'm saving it as a JPEG, save it wherever you want it to be. Oh my goodness, this is
Yeah.
not the way that I was hoping this would go. I'm gonna put it on my desktop. Okay.
Okay.
All right, it's on my desktop for right now, but I'm gonna now minimize this, so I have it available some way, somehow. And I know how I would do it. If you are not here, I guess. I'm gonna open up Word. It's supposed to go so much smoother. And if you have it, if you do the the Windows Shift S and you do your little thing around it, what you'll be able to do, it's on your clipboard and you can just paste it here, okay? And what I want you to do is you don't need to put your name on, you don't need to put the assignment on because it'll be in the right Dropbox assigned to you. But now I'm in a document. So it can be Word, it can be Google Docs, whatever you want it to be. But I'm gonna say the guide plate tutorial. Okay, and then enter. And then I'm gonna do it the paste way. So it's gonna be Control V, and now I have what I had selected. But I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do an undo on this. If I want to pull it in from that snipping tool, I'm gonna have to do a insert, right?
Or you could just open it in File Explorer and then drag it onto the window. Go to where you saved it and then drag it on.
Where did I save it?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I
you actually- yeah,
did.
you did put it on your desktop.
I did put on my
You can
desktop.
open file, right click on it. And then.
Open at the top. Okay, I'm open. So I'm gonna go to here to Word. I'm gonna make this like this. And then I go like this.
Or you could copy, just copy it, right click.
No, you opened it, you wanted.
And then you can paste it.
Okay, it happened there. I did a copy and a paste.
Sure. You saved it on.
It was on my desktop.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well, like-
goodness. That guide plate. This is awful.
There's like 8 days to do this file, like.
There probably is. Just get it on here. That's all I want you to do. If anybody needs help with this after, we'll try to figure out a more expedient way of doing this, but I normally do it where it gets on my clipboard and then I can just paste it into a document. But all I want when you do this, you don't need to add any of the dimensions. And I just want to see the object lines and circles, okay? And then make sure above you put the guide plate tutorial first. And I do want them in order. So there's 2 tutorials first. Okay, there's this one, then the spacer, which we'll do in just a minute. And then I want in order after that in the same document, you're gonna just add pages here. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna add the other ones at the end of the chapter in order, please. It just makes it so much easier for me to go through them, okay? So now that this is here, I can hit enter maybe a couple times and I'm ready then with this document to pull my next image in. So I'm just going to, you can save this. So you can do a file, save as, navigate to where you wanna go to. I'm gonna go on my OneDrive, mechanical design. And then this is gonna be, what am I calling this? Mod 1, chapter 1 drawings, right? Something like that. So I'm just gonna save that here. But I'm gonna minimize it. I'm not gonna close out because now I'm gonna continue working in AutoCAD and do my next tutorial, okay? When you hand in, I do want the one document with all of the screenshots identified on it for your assignment then. Does that make sense to everybody? I don't want separate files for each one of the drawings. We can just continue to add to that Word document. Did this just go awfully for everybody right now? I am so sorry because I knew how I was going to do it. Now it works for me. Did everybody find a way?
Yep.
Okay. I guess that's all that matters. If not, then when we're working in independent time, I'm happy to find somebody who can help you. All right. So that's our first one. So guide plate is done. So now we're going to go over to our next drawing that we're going to do. Our next tutorial. We're going to fast forward, if you would, to page 127. Okay. And the next one we're going to work on is going to be the spacer design. Okay, the spacer design. So for this one, we want to kind of look at what we have here. You'll notice that we have, again, inch increments. So we're going to open a new drawing. We're going to use Imperial. Again, the decimal places in AutoCAD does not correlate to the dimensions. The dimensions we can always change with a dimension style, and we're not worrying about dimensions right now. We're just creating the geometry. Now, as we look at this, does anybody see maybe a place that you feel like a nice 0, 0 would be? Right here?
Yeah.
Not a bad place. Okay. And honestly, if you're handing in, I'm not worried about, it's really about getting good geometry in place, making sure that your lines are connected, making sure that you get your arcs in, get the experience with the different features here. And whether you start in the center, if you start on the bottom, if you start over here, it's totally fine. Okay. But then you're just going to, you know, do yours relative to that. Now, I'm gonna minimize this and we'll use that as our reference. I'm gonna go back to AutoCAD. And now you'll notice I have my guide plate up. I did save this, right? So we have this already saved. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna open up a new one. All right, I'm gonna just start a new drawing. So I'm gonna click on new. We're gonna come up with that Imperial. We know that it's inches, so we can say okay. And now it's gonna be a fresh session. Okay, now this one by default, this is the third drawing that I opened in this session of AutoCAD. So notice it's called drawing 3. Okay, and so when we get to a point where we want to save, we're going to call it then the spacer. All right, so now again, you can start wherever. If you started this one already and you did something different in the construction, it's okay as long as we end up with the same result, if you would. So I am going to start by creating that bottom line, that 6-inch line. So I'm going to start with the line command. Now, in this case, just trying to think. I am not going to start at the 0, 0 this time. We're just going to left click and start a line. Okay. Now I need this line to be horizontal. So I am going to activate down here on my quick commands, put this up here in a way, down on my quick commands, this ortho, okay? That means that I'm only gonna draw lines horizontal or vertical, all right? And that's what I wanna do for right now. So I'm gonna click on that so that it's activated and it's that grayish blue. So now when I lay down a line, only horizontal, vertical, and that's good. That's what I want. So I have clicked on the line command, specify my first point. I'm just going to start right here, clicking. Now notice that I'm going to move to the right. Now, do you guys have, you should, do you have like this dimension that is up there above the line telling you how long it is? Okay, great. Everybody have that? All right. So by having that, that's called a dynamic input. So what I can do at this point, I can just push my cursor in the direction that I want to go from my start point. And now I can directly enter in the distance I want that line to be. What do I want that line to be? 6 inches, right? So I'm going to go 6, enter. And notice how it automatically elongated it for me past where I was at. So I've got a 6-inch long horizontal line, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this line. I'm going to go straight up. Now, even though I have a curve going, I'm not going to worry about that curve just yet. I'll put that in after, but I'm just going to go straight up through the hole and that arc on the end. And how high do I have to make this? So if I am back over here. I'm here, right? I started there. I'm at this point. I want to make a vertical line going up. How tall does this dimension? How big is this? It's a radius of 1.5. So that's from the center to one side. So the total distance is 3 inches, right? So I'm going to go straight up 3 inches. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD. And notice that I'm from where I was at. And if I go straight up, you see how I can enter in another dimension. And this time I want it to be what? 3 inches, right? This is another way we can input dimensions or values. So I'm going to do 3, enter, and now it's up at 3 inches high. Go back to here. So I'm now up here. I want to get this little dimension here. So if I know that this is overall 6 inches, there's 2 here, 2 here. How much is that? 2, right? 2, 2, and 2 is 6. So I'm going to go over to the left 6 inches. I'm going to go over to the left. I said 6, 2 inches, right? A total, it's 2 inches to our little shelf or cutout. And I'm going to go down, how far? 0.5, right? I'm going to go back to the left 2 again. I'm going to go up 0.5. And I'm going to go back over to the left 2. Wasn't that easy? That's like my favorite way to put in. That's one of the best things about AutoCAD. There's lots of different ways that we can get our geometry in place. Do you see that? And then lastly, we're going to go down here and you can either do endpoint or close because it's a continuous line and then enter or escape. Okay. How'd you guys do with that? It's called the dynamic input, where you can kind of move your cursor along and then give it its distance. Now, the important thing there was that I had ortho on so that I would have horizontal and vertical lines all the way through. Okay. All right. Now I need to put in place my circles and my arcs. Okay. So I'm going to start by putting the circles on the ends here. Now, each one of these lines is 3 inches long. It has an endpoint, and the AutoCAD program also knows where its midpoint is. Okay. It's going to be important to us. So we're going to go in and we're going to create a circle using the center diameter. Okay. I'm going to go down and it's going to say, where do you want your center point to be? Okay. So what we want to do, hold on just a second. You'll notice that we have our Object Snaps toolbar out of here, right? Notice that we see a circle with another circle inside of it. That's a snap to center. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. I'm sorry. I want to do midpoint. I was thinking midpoint. Midpoint. We want to go to the midpoint. We want to go to the midpoint of either line. So we're going to go hover over and notice if I'm close to the endpoint, it's going to go up to the endpoint. I want to get close to the midpoint. And it's not going to do that until I click on it. I got to click on it, Kelly. Now, when I get close to the midpoint, you see how it finds it with a triangle? You can in the object snaps, in your running object snaps. So if you go down here to the running object snaps, you could set it up that it's automatic if that's one that you like. I just don't use it all that often, so I don't have it as an automatic. But I'm going to go back to my midpoint here. I'm going to click, and now that's where the center of the circle is going to be. And it's 1.25 diameter. Enter. Okay, let's do that again because it didn't go as smooth as I was hoping. So center diameter, click on midpoint, which is the second, well, the fourth one down. Go over to the line, find that triangle, and then click it when you see the triangle and do 1.25, enter. Okay. Yes. 3 inches. Yeah. Yeah, the radius around that arc is 1.5 inch radius, so it's 3 inches tall. Okay. So we're here. Probably a good time to save. So I'm going to go up to File, Save As. And it remembers the last directory that you saved in. So I'm going to call this Spacer Design. And I'm just going to hit save. And then now you should see up on top that it changed it to the path that you just went to. Okay, now I've got to put in my arcs, right? I got to put in my arcs. So you'll notice that next to the circle command, there's an arc command. If I do the arrow down here, there are a lot of different ways that I can put an arc in, okay? The one that I'm going to use is going to be start, center. No, I like the center, start, end, the center, start, end. So we're going to use center, start, end. And what that means is that's the order that we have to specify in. So we're going to specify first the center, then we're going to do the start point and then the end point. Okay. So we're going to start with the center. So when we get close to the center of the circle that we created, it'll grab that center. We want that to share the same center. Then we're going to go down to the bottom and it's going to grab the end point. And then we're going to come up and around, and then we're going to go to the top and then click. And it has now that radius. Let's do it again. We're going to do the center, start, end. So we're going to do center, start, and end. Okay. Center, start, end. How did everybody do it? Oh, I'm sorry. You had a question. I forgot to come back.
Oh, I was asking about- Can you do a 2-point circle connected to the edges of the mountain?
Yes, you can. Yes, there's like 5,000 ways to do this. I was just doing the arc because then you wouldn't have to go in and trim. You could put a circle in place, a 2-point circle, and then trim off what you don't want. We haven't gotten to the modify commands yet. Okay. Yes, that's another way to do it. Anybody else do it differently? Yeah,
I did the other art man,
sure.
the 3.1.
Yes, you could do 3-point as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Anybody do it another different way? Yeah. Okay. Now, the only thing we need to do is get rid of those vertical lines. How can we do that? Have we done something today that we can do that? Yeah.
Like right click and hold and then draw it from right to left.
Oh, so you want to select first like this?
Right to left over to the green box.
Okay. So before I select anything, I'm going to do green box.
Green box over the line itself. So inside of the object.
Oh, like that?
And then also just click on
Blech, I don't like that. You could, that's not awful. But remember AutoCAD standard, and you'll notice that it does get around it sometimes, but you'll also be like, how come it's not working? The best way to approach any command in AutoCAD is to tell AutoCAD what you want it to do first, rather than on the back end telling it after you select something. It's the better way, especially when you're learning to get at it. So what I'm going to suggest is the way the selecting isn't bad, but let's tell it we want to erase first. That's all. It's the only difference. So here, I'm going to go up to my little eraser. I'm going to say, AutoCAD, I want to erase. And then I can do that selecting that you were talking about. I can start in the bottom left-hand corner and kind of go over the top of it. If you drag, if you do a click, click, it's a window. If you drag, it does kind of that weird thing. If you do a click, click, it's there. Or you can individually select, or you can do the window from the upper left to lower right to get everything in there. Okay. So again, you want to always tell AutoCAD what you want to do first. Resist that urge to select something and then on the back end tell it what to do, because that's where it gets confusing. Like, what do I want to do now? Well, AutoCAD can't guide you if it doesn't know what you want. Does that make sense to everybody? So I want to do the erase command, and then I'm going to singly select, and then enter, and it's gone. Okay. All right. Now I've got everything here. So what do I want to do next? I think I'm done. I can zoom, extents, E, Z, enter, E, enter, maybe go a little bit smaller than that. Okay. Windows Shift S for those in that camp. I don't know, doesn't seem like anybody but me can do that. So you want to get a screenshot of this portion. So I'm going to do Windows Shift S. I'm going to select around. So however you need to do that. Okay. And then you're going to open up your document. And now I'm going to add spacer design tutorial. Enter. And then I'm just going to hit Control V. And there is my spacer. You are probably going to have a little bit different way of getting it in there. Okay. So these are 2 of the, I think 8, I think there's 6 now, end of chapter ones to add here. And you're going to continue to give them their heading in the order, add your screenshot, give them the heading, add your screenshot. Okay. So this is as far as I wanted to go today. The next time we get together on Friday, then we'll do some demos on the homework, but you also can stick around. Our class goes till 11 today. So you're welcome to stick around and keep working. I know some of you have been working on some of the assignments already. That's great. And then continue to reinforce what we've been, talking about. So I'm going to do one more save on my document here. Oh, I think it already did because my auto save is on. I'm on my OneDrive. Okay. So now once we're all set here and we have this saved, you can go ahead and close out of the individual files and AutoCAD. So since I'm going to be moving AutoCAD, I'm going to be exiting out completely. I'm going to go down and then all the way down here, exit AutoCAD. And now it's going to ask me if I didn't save something. Did you want to save anything? I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no, because I know I already saved what I needed to. And then I'm all set. And then AutoCAD goes out. And then that's really it for today. So let's take a peek at Canvas for a moment. So you'll notice here really what we went over today, whether it's in your final form or not, we did the guide plate and the spacer design. Okay. And we did the example out of the book. Not exactly the way they did it, but we went through it and kind of showed a number of different things. Now, the next task to finish this assignment is going to be, looking at the individual exercises that are at the end of the chapter. Okay. So I've got the pages out there and then they're each worth 10 points each. Okay. So when we come on Friday, the next time we're together, I'll ask, does anybody need any help looking at these examples? Okay. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that this assignment is, I think I have it on the calendar. Do I have it on the calendar due for tomorrow on Friday, right? Due for Friday. Target due date. Target due date. So remember, if you need extra time to hand that in, there won't be any penalty. Okay. If you need a little bit of extra time to get your handle on how AutoCAD works, you're exactly where you need to be. All right. You don't have to rush or feel like you're behind if you don't hit the target date. Remember, if you need a little bit of extra time, it's totally fine. Okay. Now, I think that's all that I have for today. So the next time we'll just kind of continue on here and then we're going to be going to chapter 2. All right. If you look back to module 2, still gotta get used to navigating. If you go to module number 1, there is a chapter 2 drawings. Okay. So down here, this is the second part of this assignment. So there's going to be more things that we're going to be looking at. Okay. And adding some commands, but really doing the same type of process, continuing in AutoCAD. And we'll look at this on Friday as well. Okay. Are there any questions?
Chapter 2, that's all.
I think I have it all part of the same assignment. Yeah, I think I have them due on Friday. All right. Don't worry. We'll have plenty of time to get all of this stuff done.
Like Friday, just give me like more.
Friday primarily is going to be all a work day doing demonstrations and continuing on. So yes. Yes.
So for like the chapter 1 drawing, the only thing we're submitting is just the 2 designs we just made,
No.
or we
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, modules. Module 1, chapter 1. We did the first 2 here in class, but now there's the 6 drawings here. And those are the end of chapter. They're very similar, continuing with lines and circles for the most part. but a little bit different dimensions, okay?
Okay,
So-
so there's gonna be 8 different things that we're submitting.
Correct,
Okay.
correct, on the same document, so
Okay.
8 screenshots is what you're gonna have, yep. Yep, okay, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm going to, stop recording.